We're gonna reenact different Beavis and Butthead dances.
Well, I've been dancing with client-side encryption with the cloud in C# and Node.js. So
no one's jealous of you.
Now, seriously, how's that coming along?
So close. It's so close. So I could decode a string. It's just I'm trying to decode binary files, and I need to figure out the right encoding where it's coming across. I'm starting to get some errors. You probably have seen the errors, Brent, as you just probably go through Slack. You probably see all the errors going through. It's like,
that's funny. And I didn't know what it was. It was that I was wondering what that was. As I went in this morning, I was like, how on earth?
What is he doing? Yeah.
How is he getting string right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun stuff. It's interesting, but I don't. I need to write a blog post on this so someone else doesn't have to go through this kind of pain, because it is pretty painful.
Yeah, I believe it. I'm gonna go get more coffee.
Okay.
Oh, please don't. No, stop. Ow.
No, I'm good. So what hoodie is that? What hoodie is that? That was very festive.
So this is a hoodie from Cyclops. This is Cyclops from the new X-Men.
Okay.
Which was
does
going.
It have the fun hood with the one hole in it?
No, it doesn't. So this is just a normal, just a normal hoodie.
I like those full mask theme hoods where you can zip things all the way up. Those are fun.
Yeah, I have one for Spider-Man, but with the black costume. Doing on one.
But on your tights, let's see Spidey, Richie.
No, nobody wants to see Spider-T. That's not cool. But this is from a run that was about 3 years in the 2000s, and they were wearing these yellow and black, kind of all the X-Men were running with this color scheme, and the run was really good. It was phenomenal. So it's one of my favorites. New X-Men.
Richie was at the Vanilla Ice 5K.
Vanilla Ice 5K?
Did it come with that big Versace sunglasses?
Yeah, and the hat that goes sideways.
I keep trying to find those. I look for those, but they're always like $1 billion because they're vanilla iced.
They've been iced.
So what are you doing?
I was speaking at Relativity Fest. I was bugging people about best in service, and then I did a session with Mr. Scott Ellis this morning about where people just could do sort of open-ended Q&A about SQL Server stuff, and it was a lot of fun.
So you lied to people. You were lying to people.
That's what I do every day, so it doesn't matter. No change of pace there.
Just in person, so they have a better BS detector live.
Right. Well, it just makes it harder to Google all the answers. Yeah, about those page splits.
Hold on. How do you spell fragmentation? Wait, what?
Fragmentation mugger? What?
Well, I guess we might as well go ahead and get started. We got a few technical questions coming into here.
Is it that time?
Yeah, it's close enough.
All right.
Why not? So Daniel says, should we still allocate disk with 64K allocation units for SQL Server data volumes when using VMware and Extreme IO? Hold on, I'm going to tell my students to. All right, everybody, so we're going to start the technical webcast now. If you want to talk, head on out. So everybody who... It's embarrassing that I have to do this on. So if y'all want to talk, head out. You can just do that out in the lobby, or if you want to walk around the ground floor. But then we'll start the webcast now and start answering people's questions. So,
yeah, y'all don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
But you can't talk over us.
So the first question, should we still allocate disks with 64K NTFS allocation units when the SQL Server data and log files when using VMware and EMC Extreme IO?
Gosh, I just don't care.
Gosh, I just don't care. So every SAN vendor now has their own best practices documentation, and EMC Extreme IO has their own. I want to say, but don't quote me, that it still says 64K, but it may also say things like 4K, because different SAN vendors do things at a different size internally, as opposed to your old school hard drives that used to do everything in certain sector sizes.
Most SAN vendors want you to use the smallest block size possible, so they get the higher IOPS ratings. They can cheat on the tests.
Yes.
Look how many IOPS we do.
Dedupe functionality Wes Crockett laughs out loud when he says technical webcast. Screw you.
Nah.
Wow.
Wow.
How's that new job going? Because of all the questions we answered, Wes.
That's right. Wes, good job. Yeah. Wes says, actual question, SSAS has a startup parameter pointing to GOLDB. How can I change that startup parameter? G no longer exists. All right, quick show of hands for everyone in the room. How many of us manage SQL Server analysis services? There's a lot of you.
Wow.
Do any of you know the answer to that question?
There's an XML file probably.
Nope.
No.
All right, so we got nothing. Nope.
No, there's in SSAS, you click on in the properties, you can go in there and set it.
In SSAS, you can go right-click on the properties, and I should make Victoria come around to this side.
Yeah.
Victoria says you can right-click on SSAS, go into properties, and you can set it there. Plus, it's a Microsoft product, so this is not always a safe answer for anything.
Yeah.
She's getting ready to open up her laptop, and she's going to see here for
Just right-click on everything.
Lee says, I have corruption in my MSDB database, and my last best backup was 5 days ago. What do you think about fixing it?
No. No. As soon as corruption starts showing up in system databases, I want to run screaming. But what I do first is see if you can rescue it, because sometimes what happens is I've seen this with temp tables where sometimes SQL gets screwed up because of those. So what I would do is I would check the corrupt pages DMV, okay, and I would see how many errors you have and when the last one was. Because if it's an older error and it's not used, you don't see the errors piling up. If you don't see them keep happening, it might be just a temp table or something that disappeared, and you can not care about it anymore. But if it's like a real deal system view or something that's continuously giving you problems, I'd be a little dicey about staying on that server. I'd probably want to start looking towards something new because generally corruption doesn't just stick around in one database.
Whatever drive that database is on, other databases can start becoming corrupt. So it's always like Eddie Murphy joked about back in his comedy videos. He's like, whenever someone hears in the horror movie a voice saying, "Get out," the smart people just go running right out of the house. It's the dumb people that get the flashlight and go, "I better go look." No, get
Where'd
out.
that come from?
Yeah,
The basement? All right.
I'll go down there
Brent.
alone.
Brent, what have you done for me lately?
Ice cream. No, that was I'm going way down.
Yeah.
Wes says analysis services won't start at all unless I remount a G drive and move the config file to it. Well, but that's a one-time thing. You can use the subst command, subst, fake a G drive, like point it to another drive letter. That'll at least get you started. Then you could, and I'm totally going off of what this nice lady says on the other side of the screen here. Then you can right-click.
As soon as she nods, we just keep talking.
I see a menu here, so she right-clicked and went into properties.
Oh, yeah, she got that.
Yeah, and it looks like that's where it comes from. So.
I'm sure there's somewhere else that's embedded in that you can pull it, but this is the way I've always accessed this.
This is the way she's always accessed.
You know what I would do? I would check maybe under configuration manager. I would see if there's a startup option in there.
I never thought.
Right? Because I assume SSAS and configuration manager has an entry because I've seen it in there.
Yeah.
So I would right-click on that and see if you can change it in configuration manager because that way you don't have to start it up.
Oh, well.
Woohoo!
Peter says, hi, I'm a first-time questioner, long-time listener.
Oh.
Welcome to the show. Here's my question about 2008 R2 on Windows Server 2008. Can I have an active, passive 3-node cluster that uses shared storage for a database held on 2 instances? All right, so if I don't say this, Alan Hurt is going to kill me. Technically, that's called a multi-instance cluster. So technically, it means you have a 2-instance 3-node cluster. I totally understand what you're saying. It's right. It's just that people get freaky about that language.
It's like AOAG. Everyone just throws stuff at you.
Yeah.
You say it.
Or just always on.
Yeah.
Yeah. My always on is broken.
Always on.
Underscore. So yeah, you can totally do that. The gotcha is it requires Enterprise Edition if you want any instance to be able to fail over to any one of 3 nodes. If you kind of duct tape it together and any one instance is only on 2 of the nodes, so like one instance is on node A and B, the other instance is on node B and C, you can do that with SQL Server Standard Edition. Just you don't usually want to do that. Once you start getting fancy, you go Enterprise. Peter says, I understand that active passive only needs 2 SQL licenses. Yes, that is true, as long as you're covered under software assurance. Graham says, there seems to be an explosion, that's true with pretty much anywhere where we're at, in data engineer and data science jobs. So I've begun focusing on learning SSAS and R. Those are interesting to me. What are your thoughts on the evolving nature of the data profession? Well, so it sounds like he's saying that your job is doomed. What are you going to do about that?
Nothing. I'm going to hang out and wait until that actually comes to pass, because I always, like every year that I've been a DBA or I've worked with SQL Server, I've heard that my job is over. I'm shortly going to be extinct or a fossil. I'm just going to be, holed up in a data center somewhere, freezing my butt off, waiting for a server to go down. And so
Sitting
far,
next to the mainframe guy.
yeah, so far that hasn't happened. So, and you said the weekly links.
Yes.
Yes. Microsoft has been proclaiming the death of the DBA since what?
Seven. SQL Server 7.
Yeah, before it even had a year. In fact, it was still just a sad number.
If you subscribe to our Monday links, so this week I had a kind of funny batch group of links, including the performance tuning guide for SQL Server 7 and the manual for SQL Server 7, where it says, and I quote, the database has become largely self-tuning. It gives you all kinds of advice on how you don't have to worry about performance tuning anymore. It also says that the index tuning wizard, the thing that's dead now, does a better job of indexing than humans do. It's like, yeah, if we outlasted the index tuning wizard, we are going to outlast the next self-help thing. The other thing I would say about that is, if someone's telling you that the DBA role is dead and you should go do something else, maybe watch what they're doing. In the case of the person that you mentioned, they're actually talking about DBA topics that pass, not about data science. So that's kind of funny how that works out.
But, if that's what interests you, then go for it. I mean, don't stick around being a DBA if you don't want to do it anymore. If you're into SS, whatever, S and R, then go crazy.
And there's money in it.
Yeah, totally. Just, get your PhD. A few years from now, you'll be a massively successful data scientist.
You're competing with everyone who comes fresh out of college who has this PhD in math, PhD in computer science, and they make $20 an hour because they're desperate for ramen to pay the rent. That's how we got Richie, for example. Richie, what do you do?
Well, it wasn't just that. It was, there was a ramen without the flavor packets. So
I snorted all the flavor packets.
Who can live like that?
Well, the real question I have is, what constitutes an explosion, right? Well, obviously there wasn't a lot of data scientist jobs. Now all of a sudden there's an explosion. What does that mean? And how many data scientists do you really need for a company? And how do they integrate with one another? And well, frankly, the big problem with data isn't the data scientist, it's the data itself, and then morphing all that data so that it can be actually processed by the data scientist. So is there going to be a new job now that's going to actually transform all this data into a readable format for the data scientists, because they don't want to pay all these data scientists these huge amounts of money so that they can do their data science-y type stuff? I mean, I don't know, but it's still so young and it's so early right now. If that floats your boat, then go off and do it and have fun at it. But if you're just trying to chase a dollar sign, that typically doesn't work out well for anyone. Just ask the Silverlight guys and see how that turned out.
Ouch.
Graham follows up with, that was supposed to be a softball question. My bad. Well, no, it's just that we love that particular softball because it comes up a lot. There's a lot of people who are like, the database is dead. There's not going to be any careers left. I'm like, they said the same thing when XML came out. No one needs databases. We'll put it all in flat files. Okay, get back to me on that.
We got a sold-out pre-con. I bet on the database administrator not being dead.
How many seats did we sell?
360.
Nope.
One.
Yes.
Because of me.
Yes.
I my own pre-con for free. I had to pay to get in there.
True story. If you get pre-con at pass, only one presenter gets it. The other presenters have to attend. Eric is going to Eric had to pay to attend, and then he gets paid for speaking as part of his.
So I just paid myself with myself.
Goofy how that works. Let's see. Daniel says, my vice president, I assume he means Mr. Pence, wants us to do another proof of concept with DD Boost. I want to say that's data domains, DD Boost.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it, and do you have any horror stories? Have you ever seen anybody use it?
I've heard sand guys talk a lot about it,
Mhm.
and sand guys seem to love it. I've never actually heard a DBA talk about it and love it.
Mhm.
So
If you go to the bottom of our blog post about it, there was a comment from somebody who was like, I'm going to go in and run reports against it to see how it goes. I'm like, God bless you, you're wonderful. And he actually came back and he's like, oh, restore speed just tends to suck. I'm like, okay. I wish they would come out with firm numbers showing whether it's better or worse. And that when they don't come out with numbers, that usually means it's worse. Robert says, hi all, have you seen a hybrid environment? I think he means like Commodore 64s and Amigas.
yes.
Where there are failover clustered instances with shared storage and always on availability groups with locally attached storage.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been like 24 people managing that.
Yeah.
It's really like numbered team jerseys. You gotta,
It's complex.
you have to be one heck of an engineer to intermingle and interoperate all those technologies. Or
When I-
have several clones.
When I used to talk about AGs a few years ago in 2012 when the stuff first came out, allrecipes.com had a public example of that, and Discovery Channel had a public example of that as well. So it was way back in 2012 when they first came out. But all of those people had like 3, 4, 5 people in the DBA teams, and that was their only cluster. Peter says, Richie looks like a B. Yeah, he's our B team.
Watch out for my stinger, boy.
Our little B-side.
That's human resources. I'm paging human resources.
Again?
Getting tacos with my wife right now.
Aren't they at cruise block already?
I think so.
Golly.
Yeah,
My wife is what we call human resources.
Yes.
She has the
Human
worst
resources.
mouth of any of us. She swears to curse all of us under the table. So something else. Abdel says, hello, what are your thoughts on VMware VMotioning of database servers? What are your recommendations for this? I recommended the team to set resources and change them from shared to dedicated. Do you like VMotion? Do we have anything against VMotion?
I have nothing against VMotion. I guess my only hang up about VMotion in general is that if you have a SQL server on, which I assume why you're here, on a virtual machine, the VMotion actually won't be aware if the SQL server fails. So if the SQL server goes down, VMotion won't make a peep about it. VMotion won't protect you from SQL server going down. The other thing that sucks is if you VMotion a VM with a down SQL server, it'll come up on wherever you VMotion it to, still down. It doesn't actually restart anything. It transfers the VM over in the exact same state that it was in when VMotion started. So it doesn't protect you from down SQL servers. Other than that, pretty cool. When you pay for VMware double plus gold extra, like full set of teeth licensing.
Oh, and be aware too that if you VMotion like a running database mirror or availability group, if it's down for too long during the VMotion, you can cause a mirroring failover or an availability group failover.
And if it's less than graceful, you might even cause yourself some corruption.
Oh, we had that. I forgot about that. Nestor says, for your analysis services question, the config file for SQL Server 2012 is located in C program files. Well, it's probably going to be wherever you installed it. Microsoft SQL Server, WAC, MSSS. You know what? I'm just going to paste that into the questions window.
Ooh, it's a dot
And
any.
say, here you go, rather than looking like an idiot trying to read that out loud. So if you're looking for that location, it's in the answers window. It's also in a config file. Yeah.
Well, the configuration manager.
Oh, configuration manager. No kidding. Oh,
You can just right-click your butt off, print all the answers.
now I know how analysis services works. Woo.
Now you're a data scientist.
I'm a data scientist. I can build this crappy job.
Rock those cubes.
Oh my God. Daniel says the data scientists at my company have databases named C:users, user desktop, the last final copy.mdf.
Yep. And you guys think I'm lying about this, but I've seen it. I've seen these data scientists work. They're amazing, but how they get their data is crazy insane. It's insane.
And there's like no chain of custody throughout half the time.
None.
Like, where's this field come from? Yes.
It was in a flat file somewhere.
Daniel says, I can provide screenshots. If you're willing to show them publicly, like if your company's okay showing them publicly, it would be really hilarious to send them in to us, but just make sure first that your company is okay with that, because we wouldn't want to get you fired. You seem like a nice guy, but not that nice. You're here in our webcast.
Mm-hmm.
Leah says, I would like to fail over in production for patching using synchronous AGs. In my testing, I see 5 seconds where I'm failing over and our application fails to connect. How do I reduce failover time with AGs?
Ooh, that's a good one. I can think of a few places off the top of my head. My first question is, how many databases are you failing over? Because on failover, those databases do have to start up on the other end. So that would be a question there. This might be
VLFs.
Yeah, VLFs was where I was going with that. Yeah.
So if you have a large number of virtual log files, it takes a long time for crash recovery or whatever recovery to happen on startup.
Or if you have really big VLFs, then so it's like you don't want to have too many, and they can't be too big. It's like very Goldilocks in the zone where VLFs are happy. So I would check number of databases failing over and number of VLFs in there, which I do believe Blitz will tell you.
Yes.
So run SP Blitz and see how your VLFs are doing.
There's also, and I can't remember where I've seen this, but if you search on Microsoft, dang, man, look, the bee is getting close and angry.
Whoa.
No, I'm looking at that one guy. The one guy in the front. He's just looking at me weird. It's weird.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, look at that. He's over there, too.
Strange.
Angry bee. There's also, you can work on tuning network failover time, like the DNS IP config release and renew. Microsoft has a blog post about that. The problem is it's going to take me really hard time to track down. If you look for the transcript of this webcast when it goes live next week, I'll include the link in the transcript. Peter says, that's okay. Peter says, I'm the single DBA in my company. All right, if you're asking how to find a date or whatever, match.com, plentyoffish.com. I got a laugh from Richie.
I was going to start
Get dates.
So there you go.
I like that. Yeah. And then if you're willing to go overseas, it's get UTC.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if farmersonly.com is a thing, I guess, DBA get dates, it could be a thing too.
Right. Someone who understands that you're going to be on call pretty much every night, that you'll be foul and uncompassionate, you smell like a data center. He says, Peter says, I'm a single DBA in my company where when transactions in the app fail, everything comes to me. When I got there as a contractor, they never had a DBA with their platform. I've tuned the crap out of it and boosted it so much, they've now asked me to go full-time. Okay, what's your question? Should you go full-time? Do you want health insurance is the big one. Health insurance is usually expensive and hard to get. Vacation time, like to have someone else take care of your vacation time. Well, Richie, you bounced back and forth. You've done both sides. You've done contracting and full-time. What are the things that would make you decide one over the other?
It's stability is really the big thing from a family perspective. So at any given time when your contract runs out, they could kind of say, see you later. And if you don't have enough money in the emergency fund or you're actively looking for that next gig, you're going to be on the bench for a little bit while you look for it. So if you're cool with that and you've got money in the bank and you've got enough for 3 months or whatever, go for it. But I didn't like going out looking for the next gig. That was the worst for me. So at that point, my wife said, you're not even looking at this. It's been 2 months. You're not even looking. Go get a real job, right? So that you could actually pay for this house, you fool. So, and that was the actual conversation. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Maybe I should be looking for a full-time job since I don't like going out there looking for work.
That you had to get during that conversation.
I would also say too, if they ask you to go full-time and you turn it down, be aware that they may start looking for somebody else that they're going to bring in as full-time and terminate your contract because you might be more expensive on a contract basis. On the flip side, if you're doing an amazing job and you built up a really good rapport, the way I would spin it with them is I would say, look, you don't really want to do full-time with me because I'll be bored half the time. How about we just start tailing off some of these contracting hours so that it's not so expensive for you? Then that way you can go off and start getting your next client if you're insistent that you want to go contracting. But Richie, you should talk a little bit more about the emergency fund thing, because we've talked about that several times recently. So what's the concept of an emergency fund, and what's realistic that a contractor or consultant should have for a parachute?
Right. So the way I figured out our emergency fund is, okay, what can we live on bare minimum, just meeting all the bills and enough that we could live on. What is that number? So we came up with that monthly number, whatever that was. And then we just multiplied it by 6, because I would have been fine with 3 months of a padding, but my wife said, no, I don't feel good with 3 months. I want 6 months. So we saved up, and we lived essentially off that base number, and then just pocketed everything else, put it into the savings account. And so until we got to that 6 months number of where she started feeling, really good about me being on my own and going out and doing all that kind of fun stuff. What happened with me, how I actually went independent was I got laid off, but I got 5 months severance. So that actually helped out a lot. Exactly. Woo! But that actually helped out me getting the next gig. That gave me a buffer to find my first contract and actually to put off a bunch for the emergency fund, so that she kind of felt good about me being on my own. And it wasn't, I didn't do it for like 6 months. I did it for like almost 4 years. So, and it's one of those things where if you have a conversation, like a frank conversation with your spouse, they'll get it, right? It's like, well, what number will make you feel comfortable? How much do we actually need, so that if I'm without work for X amount of time, you know you're going to be okay. If you're single, it's just you have a talk to yourself, go sit in front of the mirror and say, hey, how are you doing? You good looking? You doing all right? Yeah, I'm doing all right. What number are you comfortable with? How long is good for you? So.
Yeah. Peter follows up with, he says, my statement was about the death of the DBA role. Yeah, I don't know anybody who's getting laid off as a DBA from companies going, man, you know what, those databases, they just take care of themselves now. We hardly need any help. And I'm like, well, you move on up the road. Even when they go to the cloud, even when they go to Azure SQL DB or Amazon RDS, we had one client who went into Amazon RDS and hired a DBA because they're like, we have so many needs now that are outside and above and beyond what the cloud provider does for us, because you still need index tuning, you still need query tuning. And when you're paying by the hour for a server and for performance, suddenly it makes a DBA even more required, because you can drop your bill right away by doing performance tuning.
Or when you're paying by whatever the heck a DTU is. I'm still not sure on that one.
Let's see. DBA, who I still love their name, DBA says, for the contractor, make sure you ask enough questions ahead of time as well. On salary, they can also often overwork you without the overtime pay. That is so totally true. They may be going, you contractor, you're too expensive. Let's hire you full-time so we can work you 80 hours a week and not get in trouble for it. Michael said, I also did stupid things like pay my mortgage into the future for 6 months. That helped a lot when I ended up for nothing. That's true. I made my fantasy football bets for like a year in advance. That way I knew that's totally not true.
I just got life insurance, so if things ever get rocky for a while, I'll just slip and fall somewhere.
On purpose.
Everyone wins.
Well, you have to die till the money comes to get paid. You know that, right? That's
the plan. No, don't worry.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm cool.
Good. It really should be called death insurance. I don't know why they call it life insurance, but.
Well, because everyone else gets to live a good life.
Nestor says, we have a third-party app blaming the SQL database for slow performance. I see queries SP who is active come and go in less than 2 seconds. Is this enough to prove that SQL Server is not the bottleneck? No.
I'd want to look at overall wait stats, I think, on that server.
And how would you see wait stats?
I would use SP Blitz First, available in our first responder kit for free.
SP Blitz First, which we will be teaching the students here how to use tomorrow. That's one of the things we start out with.
No spoilers, don't worry.
No spoilers. Gordon says, given that some of my company's clients still use 2008, 2005, and yes, 2000, I don't think that DBA is going to become irrelevant at any time soon.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What's the timeline on you getting on a version of SQL Server made, like, say, in this decade?
And you know you have no support. Like
Yeah,
if anything
on two of
goes wrong, you are screwed. And it's not, I know it's not yours. I know you didn't choose to run those versions, but this is where I start to, say things that are more obvious to my management. Say, just so that everyone knows, and you put this in writing, just so that everyone knows via email, if any of these servers die, I have no support capabilities with Microsoft. And when they come to ask me to make a query go faster, I'll flat out say, oh man, these are the tools I have on 2008 and forward, but I don't have those tools on 2000 and 2005. What can you do? Nothing.
Run DTA.
Index tuning was, that's right, I forgot. Go back to 7 because it's self-tuning.
Yeah.
Well, on the good note, some of those databases can legally drive now, so that's good.
Unfortunately, they're intoxicated.
Buy scratch tickets, get drunk, join the army, all sorts of fun things.
The last question we'll take is, Wes says, is the expert SSIS training sold out? All our training classes are on hold now until November the 1st. We're going to announce everything back out on November the 1st, including our new lineup for classes for next year. So right now we're building up anticipation via emails and talking about the kinds of stuff that we'll release. So check back at November the 1st at 9 a.m. Eastern time. We'll open up all the sales again. And they'll be open at Black Friday prices as well. So thanks everybody for hanging out with us this week at Office Hours, and we will see you all next week. Adios, everybody. Actually, we won't see you next week because we'll be at PASS. We're not running an Office Hours during PASS. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks, or we'll see you at PASS. One of the two.
Unless Tara and Richie do it on their own.
No, I gave them the week.
All right.
So. Adios, everybody.
Slackers.